Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? The answer is Deals. This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On this show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, joint ventures, strategic alliances, real estate, affiliate and sponsorship deals, franchising, and more. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for over 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the DealQuest Podcast. Let's get started. Adi Klevit is passionate about helping businesses bring order to their operations. With over 30 years of experience as a process consultant, executive, and entrepreneur, she's an expert at making the complex simple. Adi has been featured in numerous podcasts and delivered many webinars and live workshops, sharing her insights on systemizing a business. She also hosts the Systems Simplified podcast. I was a guest on it. Thank you. And publishes a weekly blog and has written several other articles, including ones that were published in Inc.com. Known for turning some see as a dry topic process documentation into something fun and practical, Adi loves to show audiences how to document, implement systems that really work. Her talks are packed with real-world examples and stories from her years of experience, offering clear steps to anyone can follow to get organized. And folks, we're going to talk about Adi does generally, but also how those particular talents and skills help companies prepare to exit, and also what happens post-deal and how crucial it is post then. But Adi, before we get into any of that, I want to take you back to when you were a little kid growing up, maybe 8, 10, 12 years old. What did you want to be? Because I am doubtful that it was a systems organizing, entrepreneur person. Maybe you had some of those characteristics, but was that what you wanted to be when you were 8 or 10 or 12, or was it something else?
Yeah, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and my dream was, okay, I'm going to run a business. That's what I wanted. I wanted to run a business. No, I did not know it's going to be systems and processes, and that I didn't know, but I definitely knew that was my dream. It's like, I'm going to come to the office, I'm going to run the business and wear the business suit, just like you saw on TV. That was my dream. I definitely had that when I was 10 or 12 already.
Wow. So, I can see, like, when you see on TV, like, wearing a business suit in the office, I can see that, but that could be working at a corporation. Where did the entrepreneur concept come that early?
Honestly, it started then because I started different businesses when I was a kid even. It's kind of like started working when I was in 9th grade, and I started this tutoring business. I call it business, but it became a business. It was amazing. I started tutoring younger kids, and it started with one, and then another one referred the other one. And I would pretty soon, I would have 3-4 sessions, 3-4 times a week, and made really good money. I always was able to buy what I wanted. I didn't have to ask my parents, hey, I want to go to this store and buy this or buy that. But I enjoyed more than even buying things. I just enjoy this whole activity of now you have to schedule and you have to, you have the ups and downs of an entrepreneur, even with a tutoring business, because if you don't promote, then you can deliver, but then the kids graduate and that's it, or they were successful in the exam and that's it. So then I realized, okay, you have to promote at the same time that you're actually delivering as well, so you don't have the ups and downs. And so that is an example of definitely. And then I had my little bookkeeping business. So I just had that throughout college as well. And I think that entrepreneurial spirit definitely was there. And you're right. You watch it on TV, especially LA Law. Remember LA Law? I'm sure you, it's we all wanted to be lawyers. You did go ahead and pursue that dream. But of course, you want to wear those suits and you want to go into those offices. But you also carry through. And with all the entrepreneurs that I interviewed on my podcast, I think this is a really common denominator, is that we started young, right? It's we had that in us right then.
No question. And it's interesting because that lesson you learned about, I got to tell you, I was well into my business, and it even sort of comes back in sometimes as we continue to grow, where you have this dynamic, even in a much more mature business, where if you're the one who goes and gets the business and then you're the one who has to come in and oversee it, I mean, at a really small level, you got to come in and actually do it, right? But even as you grow and even as your team, I know I've had to look at every elevated level of how I replace myself, because or else I would get pulled in back into certain aspects of it. And I think I mean, listen, we're going to talk systemization. That's one way to really help that, obviously building team and all that kind of stuff. But that issue of sort of having the ping pong about, you're out there, you bring in the business, you got to do it and or oversee it. And then you're not out there. So now business is slower. Now you got to go back out. Like that's a dynamic entrepreneurs deal with a lot.
Yeah, I still deal with it. I mean, obviously it's, as I build the systems and I have people that are doing it, it's just at a different level, at a different scale, because in order to get to the next level, then it's networking with the next level. It's me, figure it out, then find somebody to do it. I think this is a constant thing that is being done unless you find somebody that is very good at the business development and they do your business development. And I've been there. And then that person leaves, they live with all the contacts, etc. So it's something that we as entrepreneurs trying to figure out all the time. But it is when you notice that phenomena, when you are aware of it, then you can do something about it.
No question.
But
So
it
I
also
wanted,
goes back to also the merger and like basically when you make a deal. I mean, that's I think one of the obstacles is like if you're the rainmaker, if you're the one out there doing things, then you sell the business and then what? Who's going to do it? I mean, I think that's also a consideration. That's why you need to systematize it.
yeah, no question. So I want to go further down that road, but let
Yeah.
me ask you the before we do that, another question I always ask in the beginning of the podcast, which is, what was your first deal of any type that you can remember? It could have been, maybe it was in your more adult years, or maybe it was some sort of deal you did in one of your businesses when you were younger. I don't know. You tell me.
The first deal, it's like deal is not only selling the business, is also creating that deal that I think one of my first deals is when I needed to basically have some kind of a partnership because I had more students that I can handle. So then I contacted another tutor and I said, okay, well, I'm going to direct some of the students to you and like give me a cut of it. And she did. I was
Yeah,
like, that's a deal right there. I never thought about it, but that's a deal.
100%. Yeah, that is definitely a deal. Awesome. I love it. Okay, so listen, let's talk about, and I love how in your bio it talks about the fact that process documentation, systemization could seem like a really dry topic. And one of the things, and you turn it into something fun and practical. And one of the things I've always loved since we've known each other for a number of years now is that you are, I mean, I love people who are passionate about what they do, whatever it is they do, and you're passionate about this, right? So let's talk a little bit about what you do for companies and specifically in the context of, so I want to do both ends of it. Let's talk about the part that we were sort of heading down. It's sort of like, okay, how does systemization and processes help you build a company that's more saleable, higher enterprise value, more attractive to a buyer?
Yeah, so it's the playbook. It's like the manual. So when you sell something that has the manual, it will basically be more valuable than it doesn't. Because I can give you so many stories. In 2 months ago, I got a call from a company where they bought a company and somebody that bought a company. And then he basically told me, well, I realized that they don't have anything computerized. It's very old fashioned. And there are 60 people there. And if they all leave tomorrow, I would not know what to do with this company. So I don't know where the due diligence went on that one, but it was kind of like when you're asking is like, how do I run the company without it? It's a problem. I helped many clients. I mean, another example of a client that it was a painting company. I mean, it is still a painting company. And we documented all of the processes. We identify what foreman number one has to do, foreman number two, like relate it all out. That's how the company grew. And then when he went to sell, he actually brought me in to talk with the lawyer. We talked with the prospective buyer. He just wanted me there. I said, okay, good. This is a great experience. I wanted to see what's happening. And I saw the eyes of the buyer was like, wow. It's kind of like, because he could see that he's not just buying a painting company, he's actually buying a system and operation. That's an example. Another example, we did a knowledge transfer. We talked about business development. So that business was really relying on the owner. It was a production company. And the owner had so many connections, but it was never documented. Documented to the degree that it has in a CRM, or if something will happen, it's the bus, the getting run by the bus test, if something happens to that owner, nobody will know who to contact. Like, that's it, it's gone. So we really extracted that. And that was remarkable because it took a lot to do that, because it was, the owner could not think with, yes, I can systematize my business development. There is a system behind it. Then if we capture it, then I can sell for more. And we did it. And he did sell for more because that was there. I mean, and it's the worth. It's the wealth of the organization, is those communication lines, those people that he's connected with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating to me. I brought this up a couple of times, episodes of the podcast. It is this concept that they call unconscious competence, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of leaders, a lot of visionaries, whatever, they're very good at something. They have no idea. Like if the first time you ask them, like, how do you do that? And I'll say but I'll say even me. Like, I remember I was in a course many, many years ago, and I always forget who the facilitators, so I can't credit them, unfortunately. And they were like, it was about systemization. And they said, pick something that you think is a talent that you're just really good at, right? And we promise you that you have a system. You may not have it distinguished in any way, but you have a system on the way you do it. So I picked business development, right? I'm good at bringing in clients. And I used to hold it many years ago, like, oh, that's just a talent of mine. Some people have it, some people don't, right? I can't even train people or teach people on that. And then when I'm sitting in this course, I'm realizing that I do the same thing every time, pretty much. These were back in the days when you met people in person. There would be a way that I would make sure I would sort of, like, I wouldn't wait at my desk when they came in. There'd be a way I'd walk out towards them, whether it's in the lobby or out of my office, to greet them, to show them I care. Like, but again, I didn't do that because I said, oh, I should do that because I show them, like, it was just natural for me, right? And then I would reference the referral source, like, immediately, right? And again, I didn't think, oh, I should do that. It just made sense. I appreciate that Adi introduced us. She's great. Oh, yeah, Adi's great. Build rapport, right? Then there was a way that even if they asked me about fees up front, I wouldn't tell them, not because I was holding back, but because I would say to them, listen, I need to learn more about you so I can know what your needs are, and I can whatever. And of course, that told me so. And then I asked a bunch of questions. Then I'd eventually I won't go through the whole thing, but the point is, as I thought about it, this great talent, this unconscious competence I had, I realized I did it the same way every time. I mean, not that the discussion was exactly the same, but the sort of the order, the element, the system of how I did it was always the same thing. And then it made me realize, wait a second, I can. Yes, I mean, I'm not saying I can give this system to somebody brand new and they're going to be as successful as I will from day one, but it gives them something to work with and a huge head start in the way you can train people, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the same thing happened to me. I wasn't able to scale until I actually realized that I can teach others and I can develop a system on how I do things, because I cannot document the processes and procedures probably, and I don't want to either, but if I needed to, probably like 1-2 clients a week, that's it. But then now I have a team that multiplies and we are hiring more. So that is exactly right. And Corey, when you were talking about it, I was thinking, sometimes I hear, well, processes or systems really stifle or stop the creativity. But when you were describing it, it's like you were doing the same thing every single time, but also every single time it was different, because part of your superpower is to understand people, to see how people react,
Yes.
what to ask them, etc. So, but you still have the framework. You introduce yourself, you ask about them, you ask certain questions. I mean, I know I do. You ask certain questions, you do this, you do that, but you have the freedom of doing it differently according to the person in front of you. Because if the person is like, subdued, you're not going to like, hey, you're just going to be more like them. And then if somebody is very gregarious and talking and happy, you're going to be the same, or you're going to communicate. So that's where the creativity comes in. And then, like you said, you can give it to somebody new. Not all. I mean, you could, but they have a framework. But it also allows you to identify the qualities that you are looking for in a person in order for them to execute the system. That's what I learned, is that I finally, after I figured out a system that I can train others, I go, okay, in order for them to get trained on it, they have to know this and that. And then I can look for that person and train them. And that's how you create a system that somebody can take over.
Yeah, I love that. And it's fun. It's interesting because, listen, anybody in the entrepreneurial world, when it comes to want to create a business that's scalable and saleable, right? And the way you have to do that is you have to have the business be less dependent upon you, right? It can't be all about you.
Yeah.
Okay. Every entrepreneur's heard that. Every entrepreneur gets that, right? They understand that intellectually. But a lot of fewer people really teach, like, how do you do that? I get it. I understand. If it's all dependent upon me, right, it's not going to be worth as much. They're going to need me to stay on, not only in terms of money, I'm not going to be able to just do a 6-month consulting or year consulting. I'm going to have to stay on for years, right? With them, probably, if it's all about me, even if they're willing to buy me, right? So what I love is that, but a lot of people don't give really the how. It's just this concept that, oh, you should create this. Okay.
Right.
And this is significantly about the how. So let's talk about this. So you have an entrepreneur. They're an unconscious competent. They're running a very nice company. Maybe even they've built some, I'm not talking about somebody who has no ability to delegate or whatever. They built some team. They're still in this mode of not having the business systemized. Maybe they're even resistant to it because they react to it. Like there is this thing, we're going to talk about it later, but we want to be able to, we want freedom, and the perception could be that systems are actually anti that. Whereas I've learned they actually create freedom. When you speak to entrepreneurs, clients that you get referred, I mean, are a lot of them like, are they recognize this and they really want to do it and they understand the value? Or do they just have like a pain point and you would really have to train and convince them a little bit, hey, that no, the way you go and the way you get to where you want to go and the way you actually have more freedom is actually with systems?
It depends on how educated they are. If I talk to somebody, let's say, that is also in EO, because we have so much continuing education and we hear it and we know it. So you're right, it's intellectually, analytically, they know it. So the first thing that I always start a conversation with is understanding their why. They have to convince me that they really want it. Because if I hear, well, I read it in this book or that book, or I need to know it, I went to this conference and they told me, it's not enough, because this is not an easy project. It's not a motivational talk that it's not a feel good. I mean, I feel after that, I feel very good. But in terms of it's not like you're going to go for an afternoon and you're going to hear like somebody write motivational speaker and no, this is hard work.
Yeah.
And we're navigating it together with our clients. See, this is a commitment. So you have to really understand your why. So pain points are always good because then it overcomes the pain point. But sometimes it's fast growing, that it's a pain point, but you want to get to the next level. So it really depends on the personality of where you are at. And maybe you are forward thinking and you want to move forward and get your company to the next level. It doesn't necessarily has to be a pain point, but it can also be the vision that you're looking ahead. Now, I had actually this conversation today with Joel Greenwald, and mutual friend of ours, and he's really forward thinking in terms of how to get his practice to the next level. So it's not necessarily, oh yeah, I feel the pain, but how do I get ahead? So then you need to do that. So it really depends where the person is at, but they have to have a why behind it, more than just I read it in a book or I heard it in a conference. Like where is it hurting and why do you want to do it? So that's one thing. And once we identify that, I mean, that's, I guess, answer your question of where they are at. So that then the project starts and we start extracting the information, etc.
Got it. Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. So talk to me about how you go about extracting the information. And then I want to go to, because listen, it's one thing to actually extract the information. It's one thing to create systems, but then getting people to adopt, getting team and use systems, right? People like technology folks talk about this all the time, right? They put in the best software program in the world, and then nobody's entering anything in the CRM system or whatever it is, right? But it's the same thing with any process or system. They're only as good as they're actually getting used and followed. And not only like used and followed, but used in the best way. I mean, listen, somebody could be entering the data, but then if you're not using that in a way to forward your business, right? It's just data in a system. So talk a little bit about the process of extracting and then the process of having actually the key people in the company actually use the systems effectively.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked me this question. I'm going to answer to just an umbrella for both, and then I'm going to go over each one. So I tell my clients when they start is that I prefer that we document less processes and they are being implemented than to document all the processes and nothing implements. And I tell them I don't want to start a project. I'm not going to take on the project unless there is also implementation involved in it for that exact reason. I don't want somebody to say, oh yeah, we worked with it 2 years ago. We documented, but we don't even know where the documentation is. This is exactly what we don't want. One of my clients termed it, doesn't want his processes to accumulate electronic dust. It's not on the shelf anymore, so it's not going to, but it is electronic dust. So that's a no. So going back to extract information. So what we do is we first of all create a roadmap. So process mapping, each department, we do different levels. So we have the high level 1 and level 2, we do more in depth, the sub processes. And then we take that and we create the SOPs, the checklist, the forms. So it's done it for you, because that's one of the problems is the time to do that. So we create those beautiful, I mean, it turns out really nice, really beautiful. You can look at it and go, wow, this is really organized. I think organization has a beauty to it. Order has a beauty to it. So it's very organized, very easy to understand. It's written in the language and the voice of the company. So it's not, if we're working with a small company, it's not going to sound corporate-y. It's very much, so it's easy to read. But then we go into the follow by all, into the rollout, and we have an 8-step rollout that we follow with the company in order to get it rolled out so people will actually use it. And step number 6, so we have different steps. One of the the important thing is the mindset. That's the first one. We can't have a visionary that will go to the company and say, well, processes are important, but I don't apply them. Or if people are asking questions, well, let me answer this way or that way, as opposed to refer to the process. So that's important. Another important point there in the rollout is that it has to be accessible. We have to have all the processes on a platform, a single source of truth. And people have to be vigilant. They have to be somebody has to own it internally. There have to be a process champion that will not allow to go back to storing your SOPs on a Google Drive, on a OneDrive, wherever. It has to be a platform with a single source of truth. Now and then we go into how to utilize processes in a day-to-day. So we also roll it out because, Corey, I'm sure you will relate. You can see that it's true that sometimes I hear entrepreneurs tell me, business owners, well, people are not following the process. So do you know what the first question is that I ask? Did they read it? Did people read it? Oh, really? Okay. I know it's kind of fine. But how are they going to follow it if they don't read it? So we make sure that everybody will roll it out. So we roll it out. So it's basically meaning they're reading it. They're answering quizzes and questions. They're answering surveys. So first of all, we know that everyone, even if they've been in the company for 20 years, they are going to read it because they need to know what's written there so they can work with the new people.
I would say maybe especially if they've been in the company for 20 years, right? Because those are the ones who are maybe least likely to follow the processes. Right?
That's exactly right. So it's everyone without status or prestige or where you are at, doesn't matter. It's everybody reads it. So we read it and we have the process of rolling it out in terms of the questionnaires and all that. So at least we know that that's happening and it's available and there is one source of truth, and we use different accountability methods. All those platforms do have a way to show who logs in when, and we encourage our clients to actually take a look at it and continue monitoring it. The real part that is very important is to coach how we use those processes in day-to-day management. So if whatever management system you adhere to, it fits great. So if you have an issue you're processing or you have to figure it out, instead of spending time figure out, okay, so let's say, for instance, it's one of our clients, they're a marketing agency and they have a subscription base. So when somebody leaves the company, then they have to be taken off of all the platforms. So they got an issue where they saw that one of their previous clients had canceled the membership. They're still on their Facebook group. So they are getting the benefit without paying. So there was an issue. So you can sit here and go, okay, well, it's your fault or that other person's fault, or we didn't do it. So next time, let's not do it. The simplicity of it, pull up the process. Is it documented that we get him out of the Facebook? Yes. Okay, so it wasn't followed. Why? Who didn't follow it and why and how do we correct it? Next time, here it is. Please pull up the checklist and do it. Or it's not documented there. Okay, we have to document it, issue to everyone, sign off, and do it. We, internally, we create so many processes internally all the time because you observe situations come up and or we revise ours and we always have people sign off. So my ops manager, she knows that's part of her job. Part of her job description is to send it out to everyone. Everybody signs off. And then, so it's the use of it in day to day. You assign KPIs to the process. So you observe the metrics, something is not right, let's go to the process, what's happening? Because it's always people or process or both. Yes. So when you have that, then they're being used. Another key component is regular reviews. So when we're done with the project, we tell our clients, put it on your calendar every quarter, you review the processes. And we also have a maintenance program. So some of our clients, we come back every quarter and we actually send a service to everyone, review anything changed, what do we need to change? All those things, they just allow the company to have the processes up to date and in use.
Yeah, love it. The question be, a lot of entrepreneurs, certainly in the entrepreneurs organization community, both then, whatever, use some entrepreneurial operating system, whether it's EOS, whether it's scaling up, whether they're in strategic coach.
Oh, I know three of them too.
Yeah, there's so many of them, right? How does the work, because to some extent that provides some structures and frameworks within businesses. How does your work relate to those, differ or integrate entrepreneurial operating systems, let's call
No, it's perfect because like my biggest referral sources are EOS implementers as an example. Because as an implementer, I was a general business. How did I start doing what I'm doing? I was working for an international consulting company and I became before I left, I was the VP of marketing, sales and marketing, and was very successful at my career there. And but I go, okay, what's my next step? So I went to the owner and said, okay, I would like to become a partner. And so it wasn't an option, which is fine, totally fine. And I go, okay, well, it's now or never. I'm going to remember the dream I had when I was 10 years old. Okay, now is the time to do it. Although I already had a few businesses and, but it's still, I was like, okay, this is going to be my main source. This is what I'm doing. And I started my own company. I already had clients that followed me and not from the other company, but I had them on working with them and then they signed up. So it was fantastic. First week, I would go to LA to do a talk and then sign up more clients. And I was like a general business consultant. So similar to just like the operating system or basically helping people with their businesses because I'm a really good strategist. And then I would say, you got to have your processes documented after a week and nothing happens. So then one time I said, how about if I do it for you? Because I was just tired of it, Corey, because I knew that I wasn't able to get the results that we needed to grow the company without it. Yes. And my background is industrial engineering. I'm very good at processes and figuring out things. And I go like, okay, I'll do it. So then I did it. And it created a YouTube, and you're like, wow, it's done. It's been on, I remember him telling me that it's been on his bucket list or his list for like 20 years to do it. It was like, okay. And I was like, a niche right here because it doesn't exist and entrepreneurs need help because it is easy. It's not easy. I appreciate tremendously the work that implementers do and strategies, etc. When I say easy, it means that if you have that ability to think, you can create a strategy, but now the implementation is like,
yes. And
that is where this idea of niching into processes and procedures was born. And then a few years later, I go like, there has to be a different solution of where to document it. And I searched online for process documentation softwares. And that's where the one that I partnered the most with, came up and I was like, okay, well, let's see how we can combine. And then, of course, more that were in the market and I got connected to them. So people go, oh, yeah, you are like the name, like Trenial or Sweet Process. No, we're not. This is the platform. We create the content and put it in the platform. So that's the difference. Oh, you're like EOS. No, you have your EOS and part of the component is process. We come in and we do it for you. It's kind of like your fractional process.
And I'm sure that's great for the EOS implementers and the similar business coaches, whatever, because their biggest frustration, they're not skilled, nor most of them want to actually do that work. It's not what they do. It's not. So like you were frustrated, they're often frustrated by clients who actually aren't executing and implementing. So when they do that, actually, they'll be more successful and make them look better. It's brilliant.
That's why I have so much passion for what I do, because I don't have that frustration anymore because it's not like you're giving advice and then week after week, but it's not happening now. And there is no point. We're doing it. Of course,
it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I want to jump to the other side. So, because this is really, everything we talked about is super interesting to me. But on post-deal is, I feel like there's been more talk about situations where deals that look good fall apart post deals because of integration issues. And that could be technology, it could be culture, it could be systems, it could be processes. But I still feel, even though there's been more discussion about it over the last number of years, it's still not really taken on. And obviously, me as a deal lawyer, listen, once that deal signs, right, I'm done. Right, pretty much. Obviously, if I'm representing the buyer, I may have other work we're doing for them. But in terms of the deal stuff, right, I'm one of those people who get to the signing table and my job is done. The financial analyst people are done. Now the financial people have to integrate the financial books. Are not done. But the point is, there's a lot of folks in the deal process where once that deal is closed, it's done for them, right? And certainly a lot of deals get screwed up. So And there's two scenarios that I'm thinking about, right? One could be you gave a scenario where a buyer bought a company that really was not systemized at all, right? And so you can have that scenario. But even when you have two companies that, let's say they've done pretty well, even the buyer has good systems, the seller has good systems, but they're different systems, right? So even in a situation where folks have done a decent job at systemizing post deal, like merger acquisition, combination of any kind, or a joint venture where they're working together, you're still going to have an issue with that. So talk to us, how you support people in that, or what some of the issues
Yeah,
are there.
it's such a good point. They do need to look at it from the beginning in order to figure out the solution to that. We work with so many companies, just as you were mentioning, just flashing my head, all these different companies we work with, like in home health, for instance, that they grow by acquisition. So they had their main company and then they acquired several. So not only did they have their own protocols and different processes, they also had a different software that they all had to adjust, right? So that's common. We work as a financial company that they acquire also different financial advisors together. I mean, I actually work with one of my clients that they got acquired by a bigger one. And the big company actually liked the systems that we created. So we were working together on that. So that is another one that, as an example. So they definitely have all those different aspects in terms of creating. I mean, you are basically blending two different entities together. And just like take the analogy of buying a home. Like when you buy a home, you have your mortgage broker on your side, you have your real estate agent, you have all of those people, but they disappear the moment you sign. Then you
Yes.
walk into the new home. Now it's time that's when the renovations, if you want to renovate, or you do this or you do that. And it's that all those things are definitely, I think, to take into consideration. So you need to be able to identify it and then decide what you're going to do. And there are plans for that as well. You have to, that's why having the systems documented before this all starts makes it much easier, because you are able to then identify what is going to go where. If both sides have nothing documented, then you have to start documenting. So you have to figure out which process is best. And that's
Yeah.
where the mess comes in, really. If nothing is documented, then how can you decide what is better?
Yeah. So do you find that is it a mix, or do most clients bringing you in those posts, let's say an M&A deal, right? Post merger acquisition, most of them bringing you in after the fact when they realize they have a problem? How many of them are smart enough to get you involved in the due diligence process when they're even considering the deal?
It's a good question. And there were definitely, we work with clients that involve us in the due diligence, but those are fewer than realizing that after the fact, this is what's happening. I'm going to lose everything here because I have no idea what to do. And the business is worth nothing without the people here, especially if it's a business that is very reliant on people and not necessarily on systems. And, I'm looking now, like when we work with buyers that brought us in, those were businesses that didn't have many computer systems, so many, or a good CRM, or a good this, or a good that if something happens, you can go in, there are records for everything, etc. Here, there are none. And that can be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting because, I've one of the things I do on this podcast is there are like M&A podcasts out there that don't only talk about M&A. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. And they're capital raising podcasts. So one of the things I do is I talk about a huge variety of deals, but also even within any type of deal like M&A, I like to talk about all the aspects of it. We're not just going to talk about have investment bankers on every week talking about valuation and how you structure deals. We have some of them on, right? But because I've done so many deals over 40 years and I've seen them work and not work at various of these breakdowns, right? And it's almost like, listen, if a deal doesn't go through or doesn't work, it's heartbreaking in a lot of ways. It's worse for me if they've closed, right? Money's changed hands, equity has changed hands, whatever it is, right? People have sold their company, employees have been disrupted, all this stuff and whatever. And then it doesn't work on the post-acquisition integration, because it's like so much money, time, energy, people's lives have been affected by that point that it's just really such a shame.
It really is. I mean, that's the way I feel like that's why I learned to identify my prospective clients and make sure that they're also into the implementation, because otherwise, I mean, I'm like you. It's not like, I don't want to walk away from something that they invested so much and then they're not using it. I mean, it is, yeah, we are doing it because we want to make money, but we are doing it more because we have a purpose and we want to help people. And I don't think this, I mean, if you don't have that, if you don't have a purpose, and if you do not deliver a product that you feel proud of, then why are you doing what you're doing? For instance, My team is so happy when we post on our Slack channel, like wins from our clients, is using it 2 years after. And because of that, they grew. Like today, I got off a phone call just before the call here with a client. And she said, you know what, we doubled the business. And I said, well, you definitely helped. She was the integrator. And she goes, no, we worked together because without having those processes, it wouldn't have happened. It's like you and I really drove it. So they knew what they were doing. They were able to hire easily and retain. And they literally doubled the business, which for that is scaling because they didn't double by number of people. They doubled by being more efficient. So that's what we live for. And we want to make sure that all the efforts that are being put there that are worthwhile.
One other question on the post-deal integration side, and then I have one other thing I want to cover before my final questions. Is there any particular areas, because listen, processes and systems can apply to a lot, right? They could be sales, they could be operations, they could be finance, they could be more tech-driven, they could be more personnel-driven. Is there any of those particular areas that you see most that are more problematic or less focused on that you discover post-deal?
Well, I mean, I guess the answer is it depends, but it does depend from business to business because it's some business, like you mentioned, in terms of like, well, we talked in the beginning in terms of like what got the entrepreneur to be the entrepreneur. Sometimes you have somebody who is very good at selling. So selling will be a strong suit, or maybe because that person was very good at selling, he never passed it or she never passed it to somebody else. So that can be a problem. It can be that somebody started a business, like an example, I'm thinking one of our clients, like a dentist. Well, he was a very good dentist. So there is a practice now and very successful. When that person left, then what? Because all the systems behind it were fine, but the systems for actually the operatories, the chairs, the chairside assistants, the hygiene, they were very competent people, but those systems were not there. So that's where the extraction of the information had to come in. So I think it really depends on the strengths of the business. And each business, as you know, is so different.
Yeah. All right. So one other place I want to go, because it's on everybody's mind, and I kind of laugh when people are like, oh, AI is going to take everybody's jobs. It's going to, right, whatever. No, they said that about almost every technological innovation, certainly the internet, whatever, it's never happened. But at the same time, it does change things, right? And I would assume, like I have said, people said, oh, lawyers, you won't need a lawyer's job because of AI. Listen, there are certain lawyers who do certain things that are very sort of basic and repeatable, and I'm not disparaging them in any way. But, like it's more of a commodity kind of legal business. And yes, I do think those folks are getting much more disrupted by AI, right? For what I do, AI is a tool that helps us, right? And I would assume for what you do, AI could be a phenomenal tool, right?
It's a phenomenal tool, and I embrace it. I'm even part of an AI collective that I go 3 times a year for an offsite to participate. I love AI. We use AI. But, it's very interesting you're bringing that point because I tell people what we do, and some will say, oh, yeah, AI can do it. It's like, okay, good luck. When you figure it out, let me know because I am trying to figure it out.
Right. And you're in the business and you still haven't figured out how AI can do everything.
Yeah, because I do. I mean, those are internal meetings that I have with my writers and my consultants. I go like, guys, let's figure it out. Let's figure out how we're now hiring 2 more writers. And you know what it is to hire. You have to find the right people, and we have to hire people with experience and that do a fantastic job, a period out of place, they're not hired. It's like we're very meticulous on how we hire. But point being is that AI is a phenomenal tool and can help speed up things. For example, we are working with a client, an engineering company. So we are identifying the high level. And then we use a tool like Scribe or another tool where somebody, that can record somebody's screen and write the instructions. Great. So we don't write work instructions, or we write some of them because even with AI, there was 28 steps. And then we went over it. Oh, yeah, we forgot this, or we didn't mention this, or we didn't do that. Okay, fine. But it saved time. But it doesn't mean that it's replacing, because that's what I'm saying. We're not order takers. We're not here to write the screenshots with examples. We're here to write best practices, to ask the right questions, to have that human interaction, and to create the product and also talk to you. I use ChatGPT all the time. Now when I drive, I have Spruce, part of ChatGPT, and I get work done while I'm driving because I said, okay, well, today I want ideas for this, or I want ideas for that. Oh, I need a job description for my production manager. Interview me 1 question at a time until we get to, and then it does. Great. Of course, I can do so much more because of that, but it's a tool. And also, even if you have lawyers that are doing basic stuff, let's say I want an independent contractor agreement. I will be terrified to use something just from ChatGPT because what if it's wrong? How would I know?
Yeah, exactly. That's great. So, Adi, if people want to find out more about you and your business and all the amazing work you do for clients, where should they go?
LinkedIn. So it's Adi Klevit. I think I'm the only one with that name there. They can also text or call at 503-662-2911. Our website, bizsuccesscg.com. So B-I-Z, success spelled out, CG for consulting group. So bizsuccesscg.com. And I also have an ebook that you can download at successreplicated.com. And it's how to increase profitability through systematization. So a lot of ways to get a hold of us.
Love it. Adi, my final question on the podcast is always about my highest value in life, which is freedom. And for me, that means everything from freedom around the world, people from oppression, to why I've been an entrepreneur for decades and haven't had a boss. What does freedom mean to you, and how does it impact your life and business?
Freedom is the ability to create. The more freedom that I create the freedom, but the more freedom I have, the more I can create. And I'm really blessed, and I'm very grateful that I was able to implement the systems. And it's not absolute. We always want to improve. As I said, we write those all the time. But being able to hire the right team. I have a wonderful team of very loyal people that are there that I find a lot of joy working with them. And that gives me the freedom to go and do what I like to create. I like to write articles, like to speaking. So I'm going to next week to speaking engagements. I have the freedom to travel. That is freedom for me, is to do actions that I really, truly enjoy. That's, for me, it's freedom.
Love it. Adi Klevit, thanks for being such a great guest on the DealQuest podcast.
Thank you, Corey, for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. If you are interested in finding out more about my law firm, the services we provide to entrepreneurial and growing companies across industries all over the country, and my partner Brian Megan and I, and my amazing team, just head over to kupferlaw.com. That's kupferlaw.com. And if you want to follow more of my content, head over to my LinkedIn page where I post regularly. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.